The second series of Broadchurch comprised 8 episodes between the 5th of January to the 23rd of February 2015. Now, I mainly got Broadchurch last year out of morbid curiosity because I knew it was written by long-time Doctor Who writer Chris Chibnall, who would go on to become head showrunner from 2018 until 2022, and I knew that it did star a lot of former Doctor Who actors, people like David Tennant, Olivia Colman, Jodie Whittaker, Jonathan Bailey, a whole load of actors who would either go on to show up in Doctor Who in the next few years or had already had. So I kind of watched it through. In the first series, I kind of really liked it. But there was a slight hesitation going through into Series 2. It was a question of, with a show like this, where do you actually go after the first series? I mean, the murderer has already been caught, everything's kind of sorted out, then where do you go from here? Is it just going to be a here we go again story? And in fairness, with Series 2, it is a little bit of here we go again, as it does show Alec and Ellie looking into a new case, or rather an old case that Alec failed. But at the same time, that's not the primary focus, and I do actually think they do it very cleverly. While I did say that the one part of it is them looking into a previous case, the majority of this series is actually looking into the trial of the crime from the previous series. Now, I'll try not to spoil too much in the mystery of the new series, but in order to go talk about this properly, if you haven't seen Series 1, go off and watch that, because I am going to have to go into spoilers here. Because, of course, at the end of Series 1, they ended up finding out that Ellie's husband, Joe Miller, played by Matthew Gravel, was the murderer of Danny Latimer. And that, of course, changes the relationships of pretty much everyone, particularly between Detective Sergeant Ellie Faber, played by Olivia Colman, and her best friend Beth Latimer, played by Jodie Whittaker, to which Beth is now firmly angry at Ellie for not seeing sooner that her husband was doing bad things. He had met up with Danny several times and, of course, knew that they were in a long-term relationship, and she did nothing. Now, this time around, as I said, it does focus mainly on the court case, but it also shows Detective Inspector Alec Hardy, played by David Tennant, and Detective Sergeant Ellie Faber, played by Olivia Colman, looking into a previous case that Alec failed, that being in the village of Sandbrook. Because it turns out several years ago that there were 2 young girls, Lisa Newbury, who was 19 years old, played by Eliza Bennett, and Pippa Gillespie, 12 years old, played by Holly Burgess. Now, one night, Lisa was babysitting her cousin, Pippa, while her parents were out at a wedding. Her parents being Kate Gillespie, played by Amanda Drew, and Ricky Gillespie, played by Sean Dooley. And, well, several hours later, when the parents returned, the 2 girls were missing. They had just seemingly disappeared. And Alec ended up looking into the murder, or looking into the mystery, and eventually found Pippa half drowned in a river. Completely drowned, and he always held it as rather a dark subject. But their main suspect at the time, and the person they eventually arrested, was a man named Lee Ashworth, played by James Darcy, who was the next-door neighbour to the Gillespies. And as a result of that, he was arrested, and out of witness protection, Alec took his girlfriend, Claire Ripley, played by Eve Miles, and put her into witness protection. But as they re-examine the case, they find out there's a lot more to the story than they previously thought. Now, this time around, with the court case especially, we do get a lot of returning characters. As I said, there's David Tennant and Olivia Colman once again, also Beth Latimer, played by Jodie Whittaker, her husband, Mark Latimer, played by Andrew Buchan, of course Joe Miller, played by Matthew Gravel, Ollie Stevens and Maggie Radcliffe, 2 journalists from the local paper, played by Jonathan Bailey and Carolyn Pickles, There's also, of course, Nigel Carter, played by Joe Sims, the Reverend Paul Coates, played by Roy Williams himself, Arthur Darvill, Becca Fisher, the owner of the local hotel, played by Simone Macaulay, Susan Wright, Nigel's mother, played by Pauline Quirk, and quite a lot more from there. But anyway, there are also a few new additions to the story with the court case, and the one that I was actually surprised that I knew, and it's not from Doctor Who actually, was one of the characters is a junior barrister, and his name is Ben Haywood. He's played by William Andrews, who I actually recognised from, I don't know if anybody remember the show, but for anyone who grew up in the kind of in the 2000s or the early 2010s, you might remember him from two shows that were on Kids TV, and those were Sorry I've Got No Head, which was just a kind of sketch show, which was pretty funny, and kind of a spin-off of that called Pixel Face, where he played Ethelwyn, who was kind of like the kind of show took place in a video game console, and it was like what the video game characters get up to when they're not on your screen. He was kind of like a parody of Link from Legend of Zelda, or a Legend of Zelda rip-off game. I don't know. If you remember the show, let me know, because I thought it was pretty fun. But anyway, with the court case going forward, Joe is advised by everyone to plead guilty to the crime. That way he can get a reduced sentence and everything will be alright. But Joe decides to plead not guilty, which means everyone now has to go to court, and it becomes pretty dark. And anyway, the Latimers end up hiring a retired lawyer named Jocelyn Knight QC, played by Charlotte Rampling, and Ben Haywood is her junior barrister. Meanwhile, Joe ends up being paired up with a former student of Jocelyn's named Sharon Bishop QC, played by Marianne John Baptiste. She was a former student of Jocelyn Knight's, but at the same time she holds a bit of a grudge against her because Sharon's son is currently in prison, and she had come to Jocelyn asking her for help, but Jocelyn ended up turning the case down for numerous reasons. In fact, it's revealed partway through the show when Ben Haywood asks why Jocelyn keeps asking him to read through the notes. She reveals to him that she's slowly going blind. Like, she's a small kind of dot in her iris that's gradually getting bigger, and it's a medical condition, and that's why she needs him to narrate the stuff, which I actually think is a pretty dark, but at the same time, you do feel for her. And the junior barrister paired up with Sharon is a woman named Abby Thompson, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And she ends up striking up a bit of a relationship with Ollie Stevens until eventually near the end of the court case when she thinks, we've won. You're just like, you're not a very nice person. And overseeing the case is a judge named Sonia Sharma, played by Mira Sayal, who's another kind of Doctor Who veteran. Like, the three future Doctor Who people who they ended up bringing in were Eve Miles, who of course played Gwen Cooper from 2007 until 2011, as well as Gwyneth in 2005, Mira Sayal, who appeared in The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood in 2010, and Sean Dooley, who would later appear in The Ghost Monument in 2018. But I think my favourite episode this time around of this particular series is episode 6, because it does actually contain two of my favourite moments. One is that during the show, Tom Miller, Ellie's son, he has been staying with his aunt, Lucy Stevens, played by Tanya Franks, and he somewhat blames his mother. He doesn't really want to talk to his mother throughout the entire thing. Like, even he only half-heartedly hugs her when she comes to visit him. But she kind of wants to be fair with him, wants him to understand that this is okay, and he can stay with his aunt for as long as he needs to. She hopes to win him back one day, but she doesn't understand. But during the trial, he ends up to go and speak for his dad, and kind of reveals his relationship with Mark Latimer over the past few months, which Jocelyn is eventually able to pick apart as somewhat of a lie. But which kind of gets him upset. But then after the trial, well, still during it, because Mark has to go up and reveal kind of details of what's happened, Beth ends up getting upset and running out of the court, where she is comforted by Ellie. And that is one of my favourite moments as well, just because you see earlier in the series that Beth is kind of very against Ellie being anywhere near her. But it is nice just to see them kind of start to rebuild their relationship, as when Beth runs out, Ellie immediately goes and comforts her. But that then leads, I think, into my favourite moment from this particular series of the show. Because Tom is kind of sitting outside the courtroom, kind of talking briefly with Lucy, when Ellie comes striding over. And while Lucy tries to, look, give him space, and Tom's like, I don't want to talk to you, she ends up going full firm mother on him and basically raking him over the coals. It's like, sit down! And speaking him into a harsh tone, which only a mother can do. And you know what? I won't deny I was the perfect kid. I won't say I was the perfect kid. I mean, I was definitely on the end of a few of these, but just that tone that a mother can say to you to show that she's kind of disappointed and furious at you, and she doesn't even have to raise her voice that much. And then saying to him, right, you're coming home with me. It's like, we're going back to the house. No, I don't want to. No, you will do as I say, because I'm your mother. I will not let him destroy our lives 1 minute longer. Do you understand? Yes, Mum. I freaking love that moment. Just, the one character who disappeared from the first series, who I do kind of wish was in there, was Dean Thomas, played by Jacob Anderson, who was Chloe Latimer, or Charlotte Beaumont's kind of boyfriend in the first series. I looked it up as to, did he appear in series 2 and I just didn't notice? No, he didn't. He didn't appear in series 3 either. You could argue they broke up, but just he's never seen again. But I don't know, that's a small thing. Overall, I think Series 2 was a massive step up for Broadchurch, and I know it only got one more series afterwards, but I think they did Series 2 right, and it does expand on the mystery, it does give us some great character moments, and remembering David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker in Doctor Who, and then seeing them in this, it's a massive difference, and I really love it. It does show they have wide ranges as actors. So definitely watch Series 2 if you're going through Broadchurch. Go through Series 1 and then don't skimp out on Series 2 just because the mystery is seemingly solved. There's more to it than meets the eye. I do like it. So anyway, that's my quick little thoughts on the second series of Broadchurch. And until next time, see ya.